Hello and welcome into Sports Talk on a Budget on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon. It's April 5th. Can't believe we're already in April, already into the fourth month of 2023. The year has gone by really fast so far. But you know what that means? First week of April, that means Masters Week, so that'll be a big topic of the show. With all that being said, let's go ahead and look at the topics of the show. So the first topic is I'm going to look back at UConn's historic run. Obviously, UConn won the national championship Monday night over San Diego State. Their historic dominant run and where it stacks up with some of the other dominant runs of the past century so far, or at least since 2000. I'll look back at some of the best runs and where UConn stacks up in those runs. Next, we'll move to the Masters. That'll be my second topic of the day. It'll be my 2023 Masters preview and picks. Give me some of the top storylines heading into the Masters this weekend, some of the favorites, some of the long shots, or maybe some of the dark horse bets that I like. And then we'll finish off with my pick to win the Masters as well. And then I'll end my show in the NBA. And we basically have a three-man race for the MVP in the NBA. And it's starting to heat up a little bit. And it's been heating up for a lot of the season. But I will break down the three candidates and who I think should be the MVP of the NBA this year. But it is a three-man race, and it is an exciting race. And it's coming down to the end here with three more games left for most teams left in the NBA. With all that being said, let's go ahead and move to our first topic. So as I said, first topic of the day is going to be, where does UConn's dominant run stack up? Now, obviously, they won, like I said, they won the national championship game Monday night over San Diego State. They won in a 17-point margin. And why that is kind of something that I wanted to highlight there is they beat all their opponents by an average of 20 points. So that is an historic level of dominance. They were plus 120 in the tournament. That means they outscored their opponents by more than 120 points. When you combine their opponents' total scores and their total score for the tournament, it was plus 120. So that's historic there. They're only the fifth team since 2000 to win all their tournament games by double digits. They joined the likes of the 2000 Michigan State team with Mateen Cleaves. You have the 01 Duke team with Jay Williams, Shane Battier, Carlos Boozer. That team was stacked. You have the 09 UNC team with Harrison Barnes and Tyler Hansbrough, Wayne Ellington. That was another stacked team. And then you have the 2018 Villanova team with like Jalen Brunson, Ryan Arcidiacono. Was a very good team there as well. So they are the fifth team since the turn of the century, like I said, to win every single tournament game by double digits. That is a very, very dominant run that they had, and it was something that I didn't see coming. I thought going into this March Madness, and I also said this kind of throughout the year and throughout March Madness, I thought the field was wide open, and it showed to be wide open, but at the end of the day, there was still one team that stood above the rest, and that was UConn, and they stood above the rest. And they're the lone champ since the 1981 Indiana team to beat every team in the tournament that they played by more than 13 points. So not just double digits, but by more than 13 points. And they held every team they played to under 40% shooting from the field. That is an unbelievable stat as well. And here is the stat for me that is really, really telling on their dominant run. They only trailed a total of 5 minutes and 22 seconds the entire tournament. So you play 220-minute halves. They played 6 games, so that's 40 minutes. So they played 240 minutes of games in the NCAA tournament, and they only trailed for 5 minutes and 22 seconds of those 240 minutes. That is complete dominance. To look at this UConn program, this is their 5th title in 24 years. They won in 99. They won in 2000, I think 2003, 2011, 2014, and now they have won in 2023. And the thing about UConn is it's not like Duke or Carolina or Syracuse, teams like that, or Michigan State, who had mainstays at coaches, Kansas with Bill Self, who had coaches that were there for a while. Now, UConn, this program owes basically a lot of its success and a lot of its foundation to Jim Calhoun, who was their first kind of major head coach, won their first 3 championships. But after that, they won another championship in 2014 with Kevin Ollie. And then obviously this year with Dan Hurley, they won this championship. So it's kind of like LSU football. 3 coaches in the last 25 years, 3 national championships, 1 per each coach. And then obviously Jim Calhoun had 2 more. He had a total of 3. But this team, you can arguably say that they have been the best program of the 21st century. Now, that's going to get a big argument. North Carolina has 3 titles. Kansas has a couple of titles. Villanova's been very good. Duke has been very good, of course. So that's going to be a tough argument, but they have 4 titles since the turn of the century, and nobody else can brag that. And if you just go back one more year before the turn of the century, 1999, that's where they got their 5th title. So this has been a very good, dominant program, and I do believe that UConn has reached blue blood status. I think they have reached blue blood status. Now, to look at their run here, was it the most dominant run of all time? Probably not, because they did not face a 1 or a 2 seed. And that's not their fault. Those 1s and 2 seeds in their brackets and in other brackets that they could potentially met in the Final Four lost and didn't make it to the level that UConn made it to. The highest seeded team they faced was Gonzaga, who was a 3 seed, but they beat them by 28 and were up almost 40 at one point, and probably could have won by a potential 35 to 40 points, but kind of took their foot off the gas at the end of the second half. So some people will try to hold against this run that they didn't play a 1 or a 2 seed, but that's not their fault. And the highest seeded teams that they played, whether it was Gonzaga, the 3 seed, there's 2 5 seeds they played in the Final Four in Miami and San Diego State, they totally dominated. They totally dominated, and Monday night was no different. They dominated from basically about 6-7 minutes in. They kind of took off. They took over the game. They had control of the game. They had the lead the entire time. San Diego State was able to get it to 5 points late in the second half and late in the game, but you never felt like, at least me, I don't know how other people felt, but for at least me, I never felt like UConn was in danger or was going to lose this game, even when San Diego State went on that like 8-9-0 run, got it to 5 points, and really put pressure on UConn. UConn did their thing. They stayed with what they do and who they are. They knocked down shots. They rebound. They played really good defense, obviously, with holding teams under 40% in every single game in the tournament. So they stayed with what they are and who they are and what got them there, and ballooned that score all the way up to 17, which is what they won by. So hats off to UConn, just a dominant, unbelievable run. One of the best runs I've seen in my lifetime, to go along with some of those other teams that I mentioned earlier. But they were, without a doubt, the best team in the tournament this year. And yes, they were a 4 seed, probably should have been a little bit higher, but they lost in the Big East championship game. But either way, UConn had an unbelievable run. I think it does, at the end of the day, if I were to decide, I think it does stack up with some of the other teams I've mentioned and with some of the other teams all time, just how dominant it was. And if you look at their regular season numbers, they didn't lose a game outside of their conference. And every conference game they played, every out-of-conference game they played, whether it was in the tournament, which all 6 games were out of conference, they didn't play any Big East team in the tournament. And then in the regular season, they won every out-of-conference game by double digits, including they beat Alabama by double digits early in the season. And obviously Alabama was one of the best and one of the higher ranked teams for most of the regular season and the postseason, and was actually the number 1 overall team going into the NCAA tournament. So, like I said, hats off to UConn. Unbelievable, incredible, dominant run. This is a program with Dan Hurley. They still have a lot of momentum. Some guys that may come back for another year of college basketball. So this is a team and a program that is not going anywhere. I would expect them to kind of stay around the top of college basketball for a while. With all that being said, let's go ahead and move to my second topic, and that is going to be my 2023 Masters preview. And then I will give my pick for the winner at the end of my preview. We'll go ahead and start with one of the bigger storylines, but a lot of people and a lot of experts and people that have been on the ground at the Masters have kind of downplayed this as a storyline. But a big storyline for a lot of people, and it seems to be in media, is will there be any kind of beef or any kind of animosity between the LIV Tour players and the PGA Tour players that are going to be playing on the same course this week, and obviously in Augusta for the Masters? Will there be any kind of beef or animosity or anything like that? Will there be anything like that? From basically from all accounts of people, whether it's media members, players, former players that are on the ground at Augusta at the Masters, they said there's been no issue. Brooks Koepka and Rory McIlroy played a round together on Monday. Been no issue, very little animosity, and most of the LIV and PGA Tours who have been PGA Tour players who have been asked about if there is any animosity or beef have pretty much downplayed it and said, no, we're just here to play and win a tournament. This is the Masters. The Masters is much bigger than any kind of beef we could have between each other. And I 100% agree with that. This is the biggest tournament in all of golf. this is not a time to have beef about different tournaments and different tours and that kind of beef. You can keep that aside for the next week. You can start it up next week if you want, but this kind of tournament is not where it belongs. Another big storyline is, can Scottie Scheffler repeat? He's already got two PGA Tour victories. He won at the Phoenix Open, and then he won at the Arnold Palmer as well. So he is a guy that is on fire right now. He is playing really well. He is one of the best golfers. He's a top 5 ranked golfer in the world right now. He is currently he is currently the favorite to win the Masters, the whole tournament, at 7-1. So that is a storyline. He could definitely repeat. He has played well at most of the majors he played at. He had 4 top 10 finishes in all the majors last year. So he is a guy that is not afraid of the moment and not afraid of the big stage. And he is a guy that I could see repeating in this tournament. And then the last storyline I want to kind of just touch on just for a brief minute is, what are the expectations for Tiger? The Las Vegas expectations aren't very good. He is 66-1 to win the entire tournament. But obviously Tiger hasn't played a lot of tournaments recently. He hasn't played a lot of tournaments in the last couple of years, but he has won the Masters 5 times. So he has 5 green jackets. This is probably the course that he is most comfortable on. So whenever Tiger plays at the Masters, in my opinion, he always has the chance, even if it's an outside chance, just because of the experience that he has and the comfortability that he has with the course. So obviously there's always a chance for Tiger Woods to win the tournament. I don't think he will. That might not be a terrible bet to throw like $10, $20 on. He's 66-1. But still, there's always a chance just because of the experience and the comfort level he has at Augusta. And like I said, he's won this thing 5 times. So he is comfortable there. He definitely is comfortable there, and he definitely knows the course, and he definitely knows what it takes to put on that green jacket and win this tournament. But let's go ahead and look at the top 5 favorites for this tournament. So as I mentioned before, Scottie Scheffler is 7-1 to win the tournament. He's actually tied as the favorite with Rory McIlroy. Rory McIlroy is also 7-1 to win the tournament. Then we have Jon Rahm, who is 9-1 to win the tournament. Jordan Spieth is 16-1. And then rounding out the top 5 favorites to win the tournament is Patrick Cantlay. All those guys are capable of winning this tournament. McIlroy has finished second last year to Scottie Scheffler. He has had success on this course, just hasn't been able to finish and win the tournament. Jon Rahm is definitely one of the best players on tour. Jordan Spieth has been playing better of late. Had some struggles for a couple of years, but has been playing better of late. And then Patrick Cantlay is just one of the more consistent players on the entire tour, especially on the PGA Tour, but just one of the most consistent golfers in the world right now. But what I also wanted to do was I also wanted to look at some of the best bets that I would place for the Masters tournament, and here are some of the best bets that I have so far. Xander Schauffele at 22-1. I think that's a really good bet. Xander Schauffele is a very consistent player, especially in majors. He's a guy that seems to always be around in majors, just can't finish the deal. Can he finally finish the deal at this Masters tournament? Colin Morikawa already has 2 majors under his belt. He won a PGA championship and he won a British Open a couple years ago. So he's a guy that is comfortable at majors. He's one of the best players when he is on his game. Colin Morikawa could be arguably one of the best players, if not the best players in the world when he is on his game. Dustin Johnson obviously won the tournament in 2021 or in 2020. He is a guy that has played a lot of rounds at Augusta. He's done okay so far on the LIV Tour, but still someone that has really good experience here and is someone that is worth betting on. He is 25-1, along with Colin Morikawa, who is also 25-1, who I mentioned before. Cameron Smith, the reigning British Open champion, is 22-1. He has played well on the LIV Tour recently, but we'll see if he can kind of translate that to the Masters. Played well in the Masters last year, was a guy that hung around. He's hung around in a lot of majors. He won the Players last year. As I mentioned, he also won the British Open last year. So he is a guy that is capable of winning big events, and he could win this event. 22-1 is a good number to him. And then even a longer shot is Brooks Koepka. Brooks Koepka just won the last LIV events last weekend. He is a guy that plays well at majors. He already has 4 major championships, but there are 2 U.S. Opens and 2 PGA championships. He hasn't played greats at the Masters, but he's a guy who's been playing well lately on the LIV Tour, and he's a guy that seems to always be around in majors. This hasn't been a major that he has been around a lot, but he's a guy that has the game that can maybe make a run and can stay around for the weekends and maybe make some noise on the weekend as well. With all that being said, my pick for the winner of the 2023 Masters is going to be Rory McIlroy. I think Rory McIlroy is due to win the Masters and finally get that green jacket. He has 7 top 10 finishes, 4 top 5 finishes. As I mentioned earlier, he finished second to Scheffler in 2022. He's a guy who has played really well. He had 4 top 10 finishes last year in the majors. He's played really well at these big events lately. He is a guy that I guess, like I said, is overdue to win this tournament and finally get a green jacket and finally finish out the Grand Slam. He's won at every other major. He's won at the British Open. He's won at the Masters. He's won at the PGA Championship. He needs this, or not at the Masters. He's won the British, the US Open, and the PGA Championship. He needs the Masters here to round out the big 4 major tournaments. I think this is the year that Rory McIlroy wins the tournament and finally gets that green jacket that he has been longing for years, that he thought he was going to get in 2013 before just an epic collapse in the final round. So, like I said, Rory McIlroy is going to be my winner. He's 7-1. Those are not great odds, but he is a guy, like I said, that I think is finally due to finally put on that green jacket. And then we'll go ahead and finish my show with my third and final topic, and we'll move to the NBA, and that is going to be the MVP race. As I mentioned in the opening of the show, this is a 3-man race, and the 3 men that are up for this award are Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Those are the 3 guys that are up for this award. Earlier in the season, there were some other candidates like Luka Doncic and Jason Tatum. Those guys have fallen off. It has come down to a 3-man award. Let's go ahead and break down the stats and kind of the resume for the top 3 players. We'll start with Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic is averaging 24.8 points per game, 11.9, so basically 12 rebounds a game, and 9.8 assists. And he's played in 68 of the 79 games for the Denver Nuggets. I'll explain later why I think that's important. Right now, that makes him top 5 in both rebounds and assists, and he has the number 1 seed in the East. However, that would only be tied for the 3rd best record in the entire NBA. Let's go ahead and move on to Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid is averaging 33.3 points a game, 10.2 rebounds a game, and 4.2 assists per game, and has played in 65 of the 79 games for the 76ers. He is first in points per game, and 7th in rebounds, and his team is tied with Nikola Jokic's Denver Nuggets for the 3rd best record in the entire NBA, and he currently 76ers currently have the 3 seed in the East. And then to round it out, Giannis Antetokounmpo. He is averaging 31.1 points per game, 11.8 rebounds per game, so basically 12 rebounds a game, 5.7 assists, and has played in 63 of the 79 games for the Milwaukee Bucks. He is 5th in points per game, 3rd in rebounds, but a key stat for Giannis Antetokounmpo is his team has the best record in the East and the best record in the entire NBA. And a lot of times, a lot of people will kind of lean on that and say the MVP deserves to go to the best player on the best team. If that is the case, it would go to Giannis Antetokounmpo. But why I chose to highlight the games that they played is because in this era of load management and people sitting out games and sitting out back-to-backs, I really think that you should be playing close to 65 to 70 games per year to really be in the MVP conversation. And Giannis has played 63 of 79. Embiid has played 65 of 79, and Jokic has played 68 of 79. So Giannis will get to that 65 in their last 3 games. I'm sure he'll probably play at least 2 of their last 3 games. So I think they at least hit that threshold of at least 65. So you only sat out 17 or you were injured for 17 games, but you played most of your season. I think that is a big prerequisite for the NBA MVP award, especially nowadays. But just to look at some other kind of things that can factor in for the overall MVP. If you look at Nikola Jokic, he's missed the last 5 games for the Denver Nuggets, and it's not sure if he's going to play in these last 3 games. If he misses the last 8 games down the stretch, I think that could really hurt his MVP conversation and maybe overall just kind of disqualify him from the MVP conversation. Embiid had a monster game last night. He had 52 points in a 103-101 win over the Boston Celtics, Doc Rivers said the MVP conversation is over, but there is a caveat that goes with that performance. He did against the Celtics, who, yes, are the number 2 seed in the entire NBA and in the East, of course, but Jaylen Brown wasn't playing, one of their all-stars, and a guy who's going to be an all-NBA player, their first, second, or third team. And Robert Williams, probably the guy who's the primary defender on Joel Embiid, was not playing for the Celtics last night. So there's a little bit of a caveat, a little bit of an asterisk on that big performance, but either way, huge performance for Joel Embiid. He has been playing very well down the stretch. Huge performance there, but just a little bit of an asterisk against it because of the players that were missing for the Boston Celtics. But then if we move to Sunday night, and the Sixers and the Bucks played Sunday night, and Giannis Antetokounmpo outplayed Joel Embiid. Not only did he outscore him, he out-rebounded him, and the Bucks ended up winning that game 117-104 and basically controlled that game. A lot of people were saying, okay, well, that kind of shifted the MVP conversation over into Giannis's favor. Maybe that is the case because the Sixers were at full strength, the Bucks were at full strength. Yes, the game was in Milwaukee, but Giannis showed that he can be the better player. And usually when it is Giannis and Embiid head-to-head, Giannis has got the better of Embiid more often than not. And then another factor that might come into this is Nikola Jokic has won the last 2 MVPs. So are people gonna vote for him for a third straight MVP? Is he that great of a player to win 3 straight MVPs? There has only been 3 other players in the history of the NBA to win 3 straight MVPs, and their names are Larry Bird, Bill Russell, and Wilt Chamberlain. And I like Nikola Jokic. I think he's a very good player, but he is not nearly on their level yet. Those are 3 of the top 10 players in NBA history, and Larry Bird, Bill Russell, and Wilt Chamberlain. Jokic may get there one day. He definitely isn't there today. So, in my opinion, overall, I think it's between Giannis and Embiid. I think Jokic missing these last games, winning the last 2 MVP awards, and Jokic is by far the worst defensive player out of the 3. I think he is out of the race, even though people don't seem to think that's the case. I think it's down to Giannis and Embiid. Now, Embiid is asked to do more for his team than Giannis. Giannis gets a little bit better support from guys like Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday. They even have other guys on their team that are stepping up. Brook Lopez has had a really big year. Joe Ingles is a decent role player for them. So he probably has a better supporting cast than Joel Embiid. If I were to give the award today, it would probably go to Joel Embiid, but it's neck and neck between him and Giannis. And Giannis, like I said, at the end of the day, he's probably going to end up with the best record. He's the best player on the best team in the league. That goes a long way in winning the MVP, so that could sway the MVP vote and the MVP consideration over to Giannis. Either way, if any one of them win, there's going to be should be nobody upset or angry about the result of that vote. But at the end of the day, these are our top 3 MVP candidates, and I really think it's down to 2 between Giannis and Embiid. Giannis does have a better head-to-head against Embiid, but I feel like Embiid has been asked to do more for the Sixers team. So if I were to vote for the award, it would be for Embiid today, but it is very, very close, and I would not be shocked if Giannis wins the MVP. With all that being said, that was my show. Thank you for watching or listening. Obviously, you can watch this show on YouTube under Sports Talk on a Budget. Please like and subscribe to the page if you're going to watch the show on YouTube. If you prefer the audio version, it is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Audible under Sports Talk on a Budget. And please go ahead and like and follow my pages on social media under Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok under Sports Talk on a Budget. Thank you for listening and have a great day.